Welcome. We are going to get started. First thing I need to tell you. Let's see if I get this to it with this.
You just have to click it right there.
Click the mouse.
Yeah, we hit the-
Okay. First thing, we have very little time. Broad subject, leadership, reluctant leadership, the people who feel like maybe it's not for them. We've got lots to do. It's a very important project, and you can see it's very complex. We have to control people, items, agendas. And I got the big news. I have it here, Fred.
Oh, you got it?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
you are the leader we need. This is your project. Now I want you to think, how do you feel?
Stressed.
Silent. Are you this isn't really working. Is this a yes? Some people are, yes, put me in. It's me. And then there's other people who are like, no way, never, can't, won't, can't make me. Now, many of us are in the middle. Well, I want to learn leadership, but I don't think I can do that job. That job's too much for me. What if I don't do it right? So this is what I wanted to talk about today because I struggle with this. I want to do things, but sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. And I felt like maybe sharing this would be helpful to other people as well. So we want to work today to learn because learning is knowledge. We want to change that who me to yes me. We want to be out there doing the work and leading. Fellow Toastmasters, I'm Nancy Graves and welcome guests. I am a DTM. I am now a who me still, but when I started Toastmaster, I was in the will not even get in the front of the room. Don't call at me. Don't look at me. So I want to just share some of the thoughts that I still struggle with, really. Maybe it's not for you. Who in here feels like a yes me? Put me in. Yeah, I know people do. It blows my mind. Blows my mind that there are people who are like, I told Kathy the topic of my speech and she goes, that's not me. I'm like, of course it's not, Kathy. But how many of you are, no, not me? You know, I can't do it. I mean, if you feel that way. So some people won't even raise their hand. So we know that in history, there are amazing leaders that we can learn about. And I love to read biographies. One of my favorite is Moses. He started out with a hard life. He became a murderer and had to be rejected from his country or escape from his country. And then while he's tending the sheep, he hears, you're the leader, right? Just like I did to y'all. He hears it from the big boss. And what does he say? Who, me? Not me. And I can't even, you know, those people out there, they're going to be difficult to lead. How am I going to lead them? And then on top of that, he even said he had a speaking disability, which we know about that, right? I can't speak. I can't get up here and speak. But no, in the end, he took the role on, which is so cool. And he is such a leader in our world and in our country that his relief in the Capitol building in the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. is the only one that faces forward. He looks over the proceedings of this country. All the other leaders that are around the Capitol walls are in relief. I just think he's a cool guy. So I wanted to start with a great leader. Now, some good qualities of reluctant leaders. They tend to be humble and they don't even think that they are going to take control. They want to be asked a lot of the times. They don't just jump in there and take on the roles. But a really good thing about reluctant leaders is once they do, they care about what other people think and they care about the project and they really want to do a good job. They are responsible, tending to be even perfectionists. How can I take this on if I might not do it perfectly? You ever think that? And the third one that I had, I'm sorry, this is really not helpful, is they are inspired. Many times reluctant leaders won't come out of their shell until they find that inspiration. That's me too. I would rather just sit at home all by myself, but there's things that call me out and make me get out and do work. So those are great qualities we have. We're going to learn some of the reasons for reluctance. I'm not a psychiatrist. This is just from my own personal information, plus a lot of reading and Googling to try to put information together. We're going to learn reasons for reluctance. We're going to look at some of the ways that we cope with our reluctance, which are both good and bad, and then the better ways. And then we're going to learn how to help others to step up to leadership. How am I doing? All right. So when moving on, we're going to learn some reasons for reluctance. The first one is motivation or inspiration or lack of it. I didn't want to make them negative, so I made my slides positive. This is what we need. We need motivation and inspiration in order to be leaders. I'm standing here on this firm foundation. This whole building was designed around this foundation. The walls are strong. It can withstand the Corpus Christi winds that are famous with, 40, 50 miles an hour. We're like, yeah, that's Thursday. So I'm sure this foundation is built very strong. And I want us to have that kind of strong foundation that can hold us up when we take on challenges. It could be inspiration. It could be a foundation. So here, a lot of conflict that we have in our life, maybe I take on a role, a lot of conflict exists simply because I'm not living in alignment with my true beliefs. I'm not living true to myself, or maybe you aren't. So we have to be careful when we take on leadership roles. Every organization I go to, I have to like wear a tight shirt so I can't raise my hand. I'm that kind of person. I'm like, anybody do this? Okay. And then what happens is I take on too much. And so I have to narrow it down to what do I really believe in that's going to keep me motivated, because there's nothing that's going to make me a reluctant leader than trying to work towards a goal that isn't mine, especially if it's in conflict with my belief. That's really going to cause me to not be very motivated. So how do we know? I wanted to give some homework. I don't know if y'all can see this, but we have people. Who do you admire? These are ways that you can think about your motivation and your inspirations. If you're not sure about them, ask yourself some questions. Who do you admire? What kind of problems inspire you to take action? And when do you feel like most like yourself? So let's just take that third one. I feel most like myself riding my bicycle on this bayfront here in Corpus Christi. Do you think that I would be an effective leader if the job meant I had to sit in an office all day looking at a computer? I'm a very physical person. I love being outdoors. So I need to be sure that I fit my motivation, not necessarily inspiration, but my motivation is going to be something physical, something that's hard work. So think about those things. These are kind of homework questions. We're not going to work on them here today. So when we're in our foundation, we're stable, we're motivated. When we're off of it, we're just not there. I think I have one more. So when you put your ideas together, you will come up with your motivations. These are not necessarily mine. This is just a word wall that I found a list of motivations and made a word wall. So I was like, well, that's a little confusing, but all right. A second thing that I'm going to propose that maybe some of us struggle with is called imposter syndrome. You ever heard of it? An imposter is somebody who deceives or pretends to be something. And imposter syndrome, paraphrasing, is somebody who doesn't feel that they deserve the role or position that they are in. Maybe an award is given. I'm going to give you an award for your fine work. And you're thinking, I don't even deserve this. And this is a crazy thing, because I look around and I just see talented people, but some of y'all are experiencing this. And I want to let you know that in this room, if there are 20 people in this room, 14 of them suffer from imposter syndrome. It's 7 out of 10 people suffer from imposter syndrome.
We'll usually cover the way we can overcome.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
One way that we can get over it, and of course, these are just kind of ideas because this is such a broad subject when I got into it. I'm kind of giving y'all ideas, but I do expect y'all to have to do some homework. But the easiest way to get over this is to get older. And we are all doing it right now. Every day that you would, so this research shows that with age, we get more confident or more sure of ourselves, and that's a good thing. All right, so other things you can do about it is focus on evidence. Okay, I won't go at that. So we're gonna focus on the evidence. Maybe put your DTM plaque on the wall or your diploma and look at it. Well, I earned that. You know, just give yourself some evidence. Write down your strengths. You don't have to share them with other people. You don't have to brag, but write them down so that you have them somewhere. Because I have imposter syndrome. I feel, you know, what am I doing up here? And I can tell you before Toastmasters, that was disabling. But I've learned to fake it. Right? If we're going to fake anything, right? Imposters are fakers, aren't they? But we're going to fake something. Let's smile at each other. Make eye contact. You know, I used to go to the grocery store, just push in my cart and not talk to anybody because I'm very shy, really. I was. But this extrovert developed. I go to the store like, hello, wow, look at these prices. Isn't this crazy? Oh my gosh, you know, I'm talking to everybody now. I'm faking it to have a more fun life. And what I find is that people smile at me. Might see somebody who looks grouchy. And when I smile at them, they smile back and we have big old conversations. So a lot of what I was projecting was my imposter syndrome. I was projecting it onto them. And if let's not compare each other. Let's not compare. That's another great thing. Do not compare. So what's the number one place we compare?
Our yard.
Social media. Social media. I got off of it. And I know that it's a great tool for like reaching Toastmasters, but it was damaging to me. If I was going through Facebook, for example, and looking at on vacation and James is having, you know, Jim's having a great promotion at work and David's back there doing a business that I'm like, why aren't I doing those things? That was feeding my imposter syndrome because I was comparing. So try not to compare. Maybe social media is not for everybody. So I just want you to stand up for a minute because we need to stand. If you're able. Okay, let's just close your eyes if you're able. You can leave them open. I'm going to tell you that you are strong. You are powerful. Breathe it in. You are beautiful. You are smart. Put your hands on your hips if they're available. Separate your legs into the power of a Wonder Woman pose. A smile on your face. Open your eyes. Say hi to your neighbor with a big smile. Hi there. All right, that's how you fake it until you make it. Y'all get that, right? Now, doesn't that feel better? It's just the way we are. Fake it till we make it. Let's fake something good. And Toastmasters is a great place to be around people that want to support you. So come in there and just practice these skills. All right, now we have failure. The number one fear of people is blame. I don't want to take on a project because I will be blamed if it doesn't go right. But the number one rule is no matter what, I don't care what project, mowing the grass was discussed, riding a bike, you're going to fall off. Anything we do, failure is inevitable. And we need to learn to be able to deal with it. And Toastmasters, this keeps people from giving their first speech or from standing up for the first time they're offered to do table topics. I might not do it good, but leadership and failure go together. And I think knowledge is important and it helps me a lot. I hope it helps y'all too. I want to just talk about the difference between primary and secondary emotions. Primary, and I said, this is very deep. I was very deep because the more I read, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much here. Primary emotions are inevitable, just like failure, but we're hardwired, we're going to feel them. And you'll see different lists of them, but I took some of the basic ones. 6 or 7 is what they usually say. Fear, sadness, anger, disgust, and joy. I'll go with joy, right? But it doesn't work that way. We have these primary emotions. So I'm leading a project, something goes wrong, I might feel really sad. But we don't really simplify our emotions that much. We go to the secondary emotions, which are things like guilty. I'm guilty because I didn't follow up and I didn't, whatever, I can take that guilt, or I didn't do something, anxious, shameful. So for an example, sadness is a basic emotion we're going to feel. Our body responds by tears, but many of us were taught cry. So we were taught, don't cry. So maybe it comes out as anxiety. Maybe it comes out as feeling overwhelmed or depressed. And of course, this is just a huge topic all in itself, but just to know it, that we want to let ourselves feel those primary emotions, acknowledge them. Yes, I am angry, so I'm going to go do something healthy about it. I'm going to go walk around the block and try to use up some of that energy instead of yelling at my dog, for example. So try to think about our responses and have better responses to what is inevitable. Now, the secondary emotions are learned. So if somebody learned not to cry, not to let tears come, for example, they can learn to go ahead and let those tears come when they're sad. You see that? So anything that's learned can be relearned. The secondary emotions can be relearned. That's cool. That means we're not stuck with them. So we can learn to have a better response to the primary emotions, which we have no control over. Very deep. So those things can help on failure, I think, just thinking about that. Failure is going to happen, and we are responsible to learn a good way to adapt to those emotions that we're going to be attacked with or feel. Could be good, could be joy. I told y'all this is deep. So we're going to build better things. We're not going to have that broken ladder. We're going to have a beautiful ladder. All right, moving on to other fun topics. We're scared of conflict and change. And again, it's inevitable. So here we'll tell the joke. I have a joke. We need to breathe. Everybody take a breath. There's a man and he gets stuck on a deserted island for 20 years. He's living on this island, surviving. When his rescuers finally come to pick him up, they see that he has 3 huts. And they're very curious about how he has survived on this island. They said, can you tell us about these 3 huts that you have? I said, oh, sure. This one's my house. And this one's my church. And that one, that's my old church. It's one of my favorite jokes. Because even alone on a desert island, we have conflict. It's another inevitable, right? Even with ourselves, we can't agree. So we need to learn to deal with conflict. Now, the fear that we fear with conflict, like if I take on this leadership role, somebody's going to disagree, and I'm going to have to get in the middle of it. And I fear that relationship damage. I want to be friends with you. And I don't want you to think I'm mean, right? So this is what can hold us back as leaders and cause us to be reluctant to take on the roles. Sometimes as leaders, we might just ignore conflict. Just say, oh, don't worry about it. Everything will be okay. That's kind of optimism, misplaced optimism. That doesn't really work. We might just micromanage, like, oh, I'll just do it myself. That way I won't have to ask you to do it because I know you don't want to. It's a hard job or it's not a fun job. We might just, like I said, not want to make people mad. But what will happen is that people lose respect in weak leadership. We have to know that we have to take conflict on. I'll give you an example. My husband owns a business, 30 years. He's the boss. He has about 12 employees. And he doesn't, it took me a while to understand, but he doesn't eat lunch with them every day. It's a small company, but he eats in his office a sandwich all by himself, and his employees even like kind of a lunchroom. He'll go out and visit a little bit. He's not standoffish, but he doesn't best friends with them because he has to be the boss and he has to handle the conflicts. He has to say no cell phones in the shop floor, or he has to actually let people go when they don't show up for work. And if he's best friends with them, he couldn't do that job. But what I realized over the 30 years is his employees love him. And I mean love with big capital letters. They admire him, they respect him, but he's a tough boss. So I think we need to keep that long goal in mind, that it might be tough in the short term. But if we're looking at the long goal of leadership, where I'm sure, like, Lark, you've had to make a lot of tough decisions leading organizations. You can't always worry about making everybody happy. So those are kind of three things. So when we are the leader, that team will move to success. Now we're going to talk about some ways that we cope. I use staircases kind of as a theme. All right. Good. I said it's bad ways we cope and kind of good ways we cope. So as reluctant leaders, and I suffer from this, my number one thing is procrastination. Who procrastinates? Yeah, why did I even take this on, right? I could have just been not preparing for this. And so you just put it off to another day. Yes, Jim.
Sometimes procrastination is good.
Yeah, it could be.
I've had customers call me up half an hour later, after I got everything ordered and go, yeah, we need it.
Oh, I see.
If I'd have
Yeah.
just put it off. for half
Yeah,
an
well, you can justify it, but I want to, I mean, I can justify all my procrastination. I don't have time to do it now, so I'll do it tomorrow. But what I love is this cycle, if you could see this, the procrastination cycle.
Look at that.
So we think about a task,
I gotta take a picture.
and you can find all this online,
I have my camera.
and you put in procrastination, but it's just really cool to bring it to the front, I think, and to learn it. I have this task to do. Let's say it's a fundraising call. Who loves fundraising? Hate it, hate it, hate it. But sometimes we have to do it. Well, I got to go do the laundry, and I'll come back and do that later. And then what happens when I say, I feel the anxiety of having to do the call. So when I come back later, I promise I'm going to do it later. And I get relief. Okay, happy doing my stuff. But then that, of course, now it's time, like somebody says, hey, did you do that call? Or I think it myself, like, oh, I said I would make that call by Thursday, right? So now that comes back again. And then again, I go and I get the anxiety. So when I started to understand this, and I did a Toastmasters speech on it years ago, I learned my procrastination got helped, or my procrastination diminished. Put it that way. It's not gone, but I was able to diminish it by keeping this picture in my head. So I need to make that phone call. I can just put it off, but it's going to come right back again, or I'll just go ahead and do it. Maybe they say no, and then I'm done. You know, get that relief and keep that relief, because that job is done. So why we do it, we worry about perfectionism, we worry too much, we overcommit, and you know, we can always justify it. I like to work under pressure. Who says that? I do a better job when I work under pressure. That's such a good one. I love that one. Not true, because I've come to, how many meetings do I come to, Fred? I'm coming running in with my hair wet, and Fred and I go to meetings together. You know, I procrastinated. I forgot to bring my computer or whatever, you know, so it's really not the best way. You can seem busy, but it'd be, if in a perfect world, I would like to not procrastinate at all. Ways that we can help this are to keep lists. I detail my list. I keep a calendar. I mean, y'all probably have your own system, but what works for me is a weekly calendar. So I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, big section. And I write everything, every single thing down. Call the vet, you know, call David, call Fred, you know, or what. I write every single thing that I need to do so that I can cross them off. And it feels really good when I get everything done at the end of the day and I look at my list and I go, I did everything on there. And if I didn't get it done, I move it to the next day, which is that relief. But sometimes honestly, I didn't get it done, but I really want to just move it to the next day, or just should I just go ahead and try doing something? But sometimes it's a bigger job than what we can do. And then we have this age-old thing we know. Just take one bite of the elephant. How do you eat an elephant? With one bite at a time. So we all know that. Maybe I can't get the job done, but maybe I'll just do the first research on it. Maybe I'll just do the very first email and get just the ball rolling. Whatever it is with your first bite, you know what it is. And we want to do that. That is what we have to do. Just force one task, because then the job is started. And that's an excellent way to do it. And then I also love to congratulate myself. So sometimes I will, reward myself. So it might be, for me, physical things. I'm going to finish, I'm going to make this fundraising call, and then I'm going to go for a walk. So I'm getting a little reward. I have rewards. I do all my housework before I get to take a shower. Little reward at the end of getting it done. Little rewards. I'm not saying, and positive rewards too. Not eating too much. That's not a good one. All right. Then we all have this great thing. You can't describe it. Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart said about obscenity. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. Well, we can say this about this word. I really can't define it. It's humongous, but we know it when we feel it. We all live with it. This is a way we cope with our fear, failure, letting all these things take over and making us reluctant leaders. We feel stress. So what do we do about it? We have to learn stress management. Now, I cannot even begin to broach that today, but you guys know where to find that information. And I feel like stress management is just like decluttering. You kind of have to read a book on it every year. Like, let's say I learned some stress management. I go online, I do some stress management. I'm going to breathe. And then you get all wound up again. And then the next year, you kind of need another kind of stress management book. So it's way beyond the scope here, but I just feel like it was a result of what we get. And so we need to learn negative things that we might be doing, like overeating or over drinking or over yelling. And we want to instead find ways to get help for ourselves. Positive actions. For me, exercise gets rid of a lot of stress. I've also been to therapy in different sessions. People might put a negative connotation on going to a therapist. It used to be. These young kids today, they're at the therapist every week, right? The 20-year-olds. But for my age, I'm going to a therapist. Oh my goodness, what's wrong with you? I've learned so much by stepping into the role as a therapy to the therapist for 4 weeks. Just take on and study something about myself. I learned that I had fear from the way I was raised of men. Who knew? But I wouldn't have figured it out myself. So I think we have to do the homework of the stress therapy. And then I think the knowledge is power. Every little step that we make. And this is where the imposter syndrome gets less in life too, because you have more time to invest in yourself and learn things. Let's see. Now, one thing I did want to talk out, this might be too small to see. This is a book that I have just started listening to, but I love the theme of it. It's called Anti-Fragile: Things That Gain from Disorder. And I found it, I downloaded it to my Audible because it says stress, you can have a stressful situation and come out stronger. That's the theme of this book. So it's how to take stress and let it make you stronger. And I think that's what our goal needs to be as reluctant leaders. And not think, oh, I can't take on the role because it's going to be stress and it's going to be making me weaker in a way. I think that, as we know, bones muscles. We put a weight in there, we lift that weight, what happens? Gets stronger. So the stress makes us stronger. And that's the way we want to look at stress. We're all gonna have it. All these things are inevitable. But we want to use that stress to make us stronger. Simple things, simple, deep things. Y'all are gonna have a ton of homework after this. That's why I kept going on. Okay, we need a stress relief. All right,
Pass them around.
yes. And as leaders, we learned that we need to just be able to take the heat that happens from the conflicts, from the stress, from the failures. So for example, if we had a failure, we just acknowledge it, take that responsibility. I don't know why I made all these come in. Learn from it. And the number one thing I wanted to say about this is let it go. We already talked that failure is going to be inevitable. As a leader, it's going to happen. Take it, acknowledge it, let it go. Do you ever relive? Relive? That's just like that procrastination cycle. Any kind of cycle gets us stuck like a washing machine. So the encouragement here is to acknowledge it. Yes, I made a mistake. And next time, I'm going to do something different. And then let that all go. Move on stronger. Become stronger from that experience. I just was a convention chairperson here in Corpus Christi. And I had a team with I was the head chairperson, and then there were 4 or 5 committees. And after the convention was over, we could all think of ways that it could have gone better. We only do this convention every 2 years. So I had everybody on the team write down all the things they would do better. I said, don't worry about fixing it. Don't worry about how you would fix it. Just write down what would be an improvement. Don't worry about the technical details about how we're going to do that, because we got 2 years to think about that and let that happen. But we're not going to start in 2 years again from scratch. We're going to have this list that, wow, these are things to think about that we may not have thought about this time. I think it's, take the heat, learn from it, move on. It was good, and let it go. So we have just a couple more. So we're letting this go, right? Take a breath. How are we doing? It's almost lunchtime. We got 5 more minutes. Okay, delegation as our friend. We just had this session with Larkin. Many people said they learned delegation in Toastmasters. I had to learn delegation in Toastmasters, and I'm still not great at it. Leaders can benefit from delegation, but why are we reluctant to delegate? We know it's a good thing, but why are we reluctant to do it? And here's some reasons why. We might say, like, we can justify anything. Well, I could teach Jim how to do this, but it'll take me longer to teach him how to do it than to just do it myself. So I don't delegate. Secondly, maybe he won't even do it right. Sorry, I'm picking on you.
Oh, it'll be done right.
Yeah. Or I might take Alex and delegate to her, and then she might do it better than me.
Ooh.
What if you're better than me? That can keep me from delegating, right?
She's the next week.
Right. So we got to be careful that we don't give in to these reasons for reluctance. Go ahead and delegate, because Alex is going to rock this job. Yes. And Alex is going to make the leader look better when she does, because we're both going to move up together. So we love our delegation. And don't stay away from it. Don't be reluctant to use it. One thing. Let's see. All right, this next subject. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about addition versus multiplication. By myself, I can only do one thing at a time. But when Alex and I do it together, we can do 2 things at a time. So that already doubled my work. That's multiplication. Or this whole group works together, and there's 10 of us. We can do 10 things at a time. So at the end of the day, instead of me doing 4, we together did 40 things. So multiplication of delegation, good word, right? Multiplication is the power of delegation. It's so much more powerful than addition. So use it. Last thing, I think, before we come to our wind up. So self-talk. I have this quote on here. You probably can't read it. Research has shown that in order to become a leader, you need to see yourself as one first. Without that level of self-belief, even if it's only a small amount, you'll never be able to rise to the occasion. Have you ever gone to a meeting? This happened to me actually just last week. I wasn't in charge of the meeting, but the person in charge of the meeting was a luncheon. About half the tables were full. And she came in and said, "I'm sorry, nobody's here." Or, "I'm sorry, where is everybody?" Have you ever heard that? Where is everybody today? What kind of self-talk is that person having and passing on to her group? We have to be so careful of that. Our self-talk comes out of our mouth. When I came in this room, I say, you guys are the perfect people to be here. And we are learning together. And I love to see your smiles. And I'm so glad you're here. So it's my self-talk going that way. And I know that the right people are meant to be in with me today. They're all going to get something from it, and we're all going to grow together. So be careful when you have a Toastmasters event, like an open house. There was a Toastmaster here named Lisa Wisner, y'all probably knew. She was master at this. Have a open house and have maybe 10 people show up, but she could make it look like and make it sound like 1,000 people were there. Because she could celebrate each one, take a selfie with each person, and she could take a selfie with the whole room, and made it with her self-talk was infectious. So we want to do that and not let that self-talk get us down. There's no, where is everybody? No, the right people are here. And then in Toastmasters, of course, we have, so here's our self-talk. Always try to keep it positive. And we have our mentoring. I love this picture, this one. We know in Toastmasters, we need to have a mentor. Find somebody who does, that you look up to. You may learn that they are inside a reluctant leader as well. And you might be able to talk through some of the stuff that's holding you back. And then you'll turn right around and pass it on to other Toastmasters. And that's just a power of Toastmasters. And we, oh, my battery's low. Okay, a perfect timing because we are done, almost. Just in conclusion, another leader that I admire was a very reluctant leader. Y'all can learn about him. So our conclusion, you're going to have homework, right? We're going to define our foundation. Define your foundation. Pay attention to your emotional responses as you go through your day. Identify your own insecurities. You don't have to say them to other people, but don't be scared to look in. Don't be scared to get that therapy or whatever it is that it takes for you to do that. Learn your stress management techniques. Tons of information on this. We need a new book about it every year. Remember to take one bite out of the elephant. Don't let procrastination stop you. Use Toastmasters projects to learn about you. Like I said, I learned about procrastination and I made it into a speech. So I taught all the other Toastmasters in that group about it and also cemented it more firmly into my mind. I find Toastmasters to be therapy. Does anybody else? I mean, you do research into things that you're thinking about and it helps you to think about what you want to say and it helps you to think. Powerful stuff there. Find a mentor and a mentee. And we want to start with the smaller roles and ask people to take on smaller roles. So this, I'm talking in the first person because